Hey, the moon. Good morning. Well, there's spelling. Luna, moon. The name. If we want to know about something, we can look at the name, its given name, origins. Maybe we could go to the Latin, Greek translation. But we can just talk about its characteristics. But a name, sometimes names are given to something that already exists. Sometimes a name is, when we're born, we're given names before we're born, and then after we're born, we have a structure to build our personalities around, which does happen. And this is noticeable when people change their names. So somebody with no name, for instance, will be given a name by friends, or you're going to get a name based on personality characteristics or whatever. Even if it's a bad, funny name. But yeah, my name talk about the lettering. It's the letters. It's not even the pronunciation. It's the letters that build the identity, that create the identity. The letters, I was saying on a license plate before on my car Mustang I had in Texas. When I removed the license plate from the car, I recognized the energy on the plate itself. That's not the car, but the plate. So in Texas it's 6, so 123-6, 123, 6 different character combinations in that, which you can't pronounce. Obviously you can't pronounce numbers, letters together, but that was an identity, a specific energy type signature encapsulated in a plate with the word Texas above it, which gave it that identity, which was interesting to me. Had I not taken the plate off the car itself, I probably would not have realized that. But I took it off, I think I tossed it, then a friend went and grabbed it from the trash, and I recognized that energy that was not on the car, but it was on the plate. And then humans also, so that's the identity, the energy of the car, right? I mean, cars have lots of numbers. They have VIN numbers, and they have a plate number. And the plate number itself can change. People do all kinds of custom, stupid plate numbers, plates. But, so there's that. So yeah, the moon, we can start with the MOON. What does that mean? We'd have to go back to the different letterings. But what I really want to talk about is the moon. I do want to talk about the moon. So, yeah, last night there was a lunar eclipse, or a blood moon. It was good. Everybody knew it was going to happen, so It's not that I don't believe in, do or don't believe in NASA. I just do believe they're lying enough, but to not believe them. But they have all these things charted out anyways. Regardless, these things happen like clockwork because we live underneath or inside of a big clock, right? Sky clock. So maybe that eclipse was a kind of cleansing of the moon. I know I've heard a lot of crazy stuff recently about the moon, that it's damaged, it's giving off funny frequencies. I've heard a lot of funny stuff, but if I look at it as, you know, kind of, I looked at it last night as kind of a cleansing, maybe like a rebirth, the eclipse itself. Like it was going through like a cleanse, you know? It's very odd. It was as though it was looking at me. I was looking at it, but it was going through a change, you know? So here was the moon, then it was going like this, and half of it was looking at me, you know, kind of peeking out. But there was something going on, something intimate, something that I felt like maybe I shouldn't even be looking at, kind of, you know? Because you could see the change going, there was change going on. Not that there's just an eclipse. That's a name a dumb name. When in actuality, I think there was just like a change going on. Like I could tell. I want to consider it like a rebirth. Now it was full moon, so there's a full moon eclipse and an eclipse. So there's so much we don't know. There's so much we're lied to about. If we weren't lied to about so many things, if we just remove the lies, then the truth might be obvious, and you say, oh yeah, duh, no wonder, yeah, it all makes sense now. That's probably what you would say, but since there are so many lies, you have to unravel so although everything might be just simplistic in nature, but so yeah, the moon. Let's talk more about the moon. Female, right? The moon is a part of the balance of nature. Without it, things would be different, right? The moon is like a clock. Well, first of all, it's something visual in the sky, right? Now, let's say it wasn't visible, which it is, but let's say it wasn't. But it still had the same effect, right? But the thing is, the visual and the effects are synchronistic. So when we can see and feel what's happening. So when there's an eclipse, what does that do? When there's a full moon, what does that do? Well, we know about the full moon, the effect, but what is the effect of eclipse? Nobody talks about that. Or this change in the moon. Nobody talks about that. Maybe they do, I just haven't read about it. But obviously there's going to be a really interesting effect when there's this so-called word eclipse, but that's just a word, but maybe that's not a good word, right? When this change is happening, and this it was like an inner change going on when this happened. That's how I viewed it. But I viewed it as the moon looking at me, but going through a change at the same time, something intimate. And it is intimate. Every time you look at the moon, it's something that's real. Do I want to say that it's looking back at me, or that it recognizes me looking at it and I recognize it, kind of, right? So yeah, something kind of intimate going on. Personal. So when you look at it, that's not the whole story, but it tells some of the story. So the moon can be so what have I covered right now? And I just interesting thing, you know, that the effects of the moon are what they are, but we can see what's going on also. So there's the visual aspect is there for a reason, right? There doesn't have to be a visual aspect for the effects to the effects could just be taking place without us being able to just look up and see what's going on. But with that information, that's a bit more, so we can actually see what's going on and know so when there's a full moon, it affects nature, it affects Earth. The moon cycles affect growth and everything, right? It is important. It does matter. You know, when you plant, you're supposed to plant when the moon is waxing, right? When it's getting bigger, not smaller. Stuff like that. So it affects nature, growth, change. So an eclipse, what is that? I think of it, now there's a new moon, right? That's the new moon. So when the moon goes through all its cycles, when it's full, that's the final cycle. Then it starts going back down, and then it goes to zero. Then there's a new moon, right? And then it starts going back in those different cycles every day, right? So there's 31 days in a month calendar, and that's designed around the moon cycles, right? And then you have the year. So a year is there's nothing, well, let's see. Does a year have anything to do with the 365? I don't know. There's just these endless, like, 30-day moon cycles. That's really all there is. But the year cycle, I don't know what that's about. You know, I'll have to look all this up. There's stuff I have to learn, but I kind of want to just go over what I do know, and I kind of just want to theorize about what the moon is. And there's stuff that NASA says or mainstream science says, and then there's stuff, you know, the astronomers, astrologists say, palm readers, etc. And then there's stuff that just really is outside the box, free thinkers, you know, like the moon rang like a bell, or that it's people saying it's damaged, giving out funny frequencies. So there's a lot of speculation and different things being said about the luminary, the moon. Me personally, the moon is like Melissa. It, I guess it would have that more, esoterically, they say it's feminine and the sun is masculine. But then I've heard the opposite. People say the opposite. Well, actually, the sun is feminine and the moon is masculine. So there's people saying everything and anything about the moon. But some things we could just say, okay, this is true. And they're not really, it's not a question, right? This is true. So, it's all, it's all sacred. It's all part of life. It's, maybe you shouldn't even talk about it, right? That's how sacred it is. Maybe it just shouldn't be talked about. But we're just talking about it just to get a better understanding of what it is, right? It's a clock in the sky. The whole sky is a clock. The Bible says the sun rules the day, the lesser light rules the night. So when you're in a room, a lot of times I like to have mood lighting. I don't like the light right over in the middle of the room. It does rule over the room, and it can be kind of oppressive with that light just blaring over the room, over you. So in some cases you have a light that's on the ground or mood lighting. You shade it with different ways, and it's not ruling over you, over your head. That's why I always like certain types of lighting in a room. I don't like it blaring down on me necessarily. But yeah, I like the sun. I like the clouds. I like the moon. But yeah, what is the moon? What is the moon? It's a light. The moon is a light. And it, I don't think, well, is it something we can touch now? That's interesting. Is it something that's like an optical illusion? Is it solid? Is it dust? Is it metal? I feel more like it's just something that's living more. Something that recognizes me and I recognize it when I look at it. So if it can recognize me and I can feel energy, that means it's kind of like I want to say sentient, but it would be a heavenly being, a heavenly object. It's visual, but then it has these effects on Earth, on humans. It cycles every month. Some people will say it's controlling. Some people say when the moon was put here, it's oppressive, right? Some people, there's a lot of speculation that's been said about the moon. Some people think it's bad even, Before the moon was here, we were so happy and good and everything was free. And then we had this oppressive moon. So it's a giant calendar, but it affects energies like, it affects life on Earth. It affects human life, plant life, parasitic life, all of it. So, but yeah, when it was having the eclipse, so-called eclipse, that's the word given. It's a very simplistic word. But it looked like, if I was just observing it, there was a shadow that came over it. Or I could only see a little bit of it, but I couldn't see what it was being blocked out by. Now, bear in mind, there's official theories to what's going on, but I don't believe anything NASA says or anything else. So, just what I could observe, kind of reminded me of a cloud passing over it, where you couldn't see the rest of it. So I don't know really what was going on there. But I felt like it was going through a change, like a cycle. Now it changes every month, right? But I felt like it was yeah, it was eclipsed, I guess, but it didn't necessarily feel bad, like bad. It just felt like a well, number one is strong energy. It was a full moon. But then with the eclipse, what type of energy is that? Now, nobody talks about that, or I haven't heard anyone talk about it. So what type of energy is the eclipse now? We know what type of energy a full moon is. We know what... So energetically, let's just talk about energy, period. So when the moon is full versus... it's a strong energy, right? So now what strong energy is that I'm talking about? What does that mean? What energy is strong? When the moon is very small, what type of energy is that? So when the moon is full, it's a good energy, right? It's like you feel connected. You feel, I don't want to say frequency like a 5G, but there's something there, right? It's emitting, or there's a connection. It's not just visual, it's felt, it's real. We feel it as humans. We are part of it. We are part of the moon. We are part of nature. We feel it. It changes us. It's not just a visual thing in the sky. So... So what is full moon energy? It doesn't pop out of nowhere. It cycles. It goes up, 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 builds, and then it starts going down, 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 and back up, 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 and every month, same thing. Every 30 or 31 days, same thing happens over and over again. It's a nature cycle. We are all nature. Women have their monthly period once a month. The moon is said to be feminine. I'll stick with that. So yeah, it cycles every 30 days, 30 or 31 so days. Its effects are felt, its effects are visual. So remember, we don't have to have the visual, but it's there. So we can see and feel the effects. So when the moon is full, we know what to expect, kind of, right? It's there for our, well, maybe it's not there for us at all. It's just there, and it's doing what it does regardless of if we think anything of it or not. But if we just observe, we can learn a little bit, right? If we just observe, we can learn. So what is the eclipse now? What was this eclipse thing? I felt like it was a change. I felt like it was a it was cleansing somehow, doing some inner work, rebirth. So the fact that we call it just a simple, it's an eclipse, it's the planets, they're moving in front of each other, so it's a shadow. Yeah, okay. Talk about disrespect, or just talk about just, the moon's not just a light, it affects us. You know this. Why call it a light? Why not talk about the actual effects it has on nature, on us, how we are part of it? We're all part of it. It's inescapable. Why just say, oh, well, the planets are moving in front of this one and this one. That's why it's an eclipse. Yeah, we can see it. Oh, isn't that cool, the eclipse? Whoa. That's, very nearsighted. When in actuality, the effect is what should be talked about, because that's real. And that's what should be studied, not just, well, the visual. How does it affect you? How do you feel? What changes are about? So I feel, yeah, it's like kind of like a new moon or a cleanse or it was going through something, basically, right? It was doing some inner work. But at the same time, everybody on Earth was going through the same thing and feeling the effects of that. So at the time that this was happening visually, and we could also feel it in the moon, it was happening in each of us at the same time. As every full moon, we feel it. Plants feel it. nature. It's part of nature. It's part of humanity. The birds, the bees. Now, some people say that's where we go. We go to the moon. When we die, there's a moon. No, this is said, I don't know if I believe it. There's a moon matrix. And we go there to the moon and we're recycled. But now, I don't know if I believe that. So the moon, silver cord. Just simply talking about the moon could have an effect, as a matter of fact. You know, some of these gurus, these book gurus, writers, they have, one of these guys has a tattoo of the moon. He has a tattoo. He has a tattoo of the moon cycles on his arm. I mean, people get some interesting tattoos. That's okay. But yeah, let's develop a good relationship with the moon. Is it electromagnetic? That's okay. We can have good relationships with the moon or the sun, whatever you think the sun is. Is it a point in the is it a point in the sky on a dome that moves, that's coming from like inner Earth and circling, reflecting off of a globe, off of a dome? Well, let's get to know the moon a little bit more. How about that? If we ask questions, we can get answers. We don't want to be vulgar. We don't want to be disrespectful. But we want to just, okay. We want to say, hey, I want to get to know you, moon, a little bit better. What are you all about? So, yeah, that's interesting. I think the feeling of a full moon is actually a good feeling. The feeling of a no moon, right, when it's really small, in a way it's a freeing type of feeling, but it's also kind of an empty feeling. So then when the moon comes full again, we feel a stronger energy. Now, what type of energy are we feeling? We feel a connection. Maybe it's strong, right, versus weak. Remember, that's visual. Everything it does, it shows us what it's doing visually, right? Everything it does, it shows us what it's doing. We feel it and we can see it. But I'm about to go do some Cholo fit here at the park. But I wanted to talk about the moon because I wanted to talk about it because it interests me. And everybody else is talking about it, all the flat earthers. So if we ask more questions, if we ask the right questions, we can get answers. And we can establish some truths, right? We can just say, okay, this is true about the effects of the moon on us, on nature, on cycles, that it happens every month, like a calendar, like a clock. It's accurate. It's part of the giant sky clock that we live underneath. So yeah, I'm gonna go do some walking and maybe do a few little push-up pullbacks here in the park. But yeah, I wanted to talk about the moon. See ya. So I am talking about the moon, so yeah.